Today, we're going to talk about prebiotics and probiotics. These are two nutritional ways by which we can try to modulate our gut microbiome. We're going to talk about the difference between prebiotics and probiotics. We're going to talk about some of the biological and chemical properties that makes a substance an effective prebiotic. We're then going to talk about some of the factors that makes it effective, and then we're going to describe some of the challenges in using probiotics and assessing their effectiveness at an individual level. So there are two main ways by which we can modify our gut microbes: prebiotics and probiotics. Prebiotics are selectively fermented ingredients. These are things like fermentable fibers. These serve as food sources for particular bacteria. There's a large variety of potential prebiotics. A probiotic, on the other hand, is a live bacteria that is meant to colonize the bacteria in our gastrointestinal tract. So let's start with prebiotics. Well, there's some general properties we can think that might make something an effective prebiotic. First of all, it can't be digested by human enzymes to any substantial fraction. Second, it should be resistant to stomach acids. If it's acid labile, it won't make it to the large intestine. Third, it should not be absorbed, especially not be absorbed by the small intestine or before it gets to the large intestine. Generally, they tend to be soluble, and they must be fermentable by at least one bacterial species. Most prebiotics, which have different chemical structures, can promote the growth of specific bacterial species. Prebiotics exist in a large number of foods. Some examples include onions, artichokes, bananas, and garlic. Let's go through a couple of examples so I can show you what the difference in the chemical structures are and different food sources and how they could affect our gut. Let's start with a class of molecules called fructans. These are polyfructose polysaccharides. They contain beta-2,1 and beta-2,6 linkages between fructose molecules. We do not have enzymes to break down the beta-2,1 or beta-2,6 bonds. That means these cannot be digested and absorbed in our small intestine. The property of a fructan is generally they are quite soluble and highly fermentable by specific bacterial species. These can be commonly found in foods like onions, artichokes, asparagus, and jicama. Another example are galactans. These are polygalactose molecules. We do not have the enzymes to break down the alpha-1,3 or alpha-1,6 linkages between galactose bonds. Therefore, they escape the digestion in our small intestine and make it to our large intestine. Again, like the polyfructans, they're soluble and highly fermentable. These are found in things like chickpeas, broccoli, lentils, and kidney beans. What is the evidence that prebiotics have some effect? Well, unfortunately, it's been a challenge to find good studies that show long-term stable effects of prebiotics. The strongest evidence tends to be in improving gastric motility in newborns and in patients with inflammatory bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease. There's some evidence that some prebiotics can reduce some autoimmune function. Again, likely by promoting the growth of specific bacteria, which then reduce immune function. This is a challenge because the effectiveness of a prebiotic depends on, is the underlying bacterial species which grows on that prebiotic available? And it can be complicated because every person has a different set of gut microbes that are present. You could induce the growth of one beneficial bacteria, but also the growth of a bacteria that could be somewhat pathogenic. Sometimes in these studies, the ones that have more strong benefits, a prebiotic is given in conjunction with a specific probiotic. In that case, you're giving a fermentable substrate along with a particular bacteria that thrives in the presence of that substrate. This can enhance the colonization of the probiotic by providing food for that particular species. Probiotics are live bacteria that are meant to colonize. These exist in several food sources, especially fermented foods. They can also be provided as dietary supplements. In order for a bacteria to stably colonize our gut, it must be compatible with our microbial niche, and our diet must allow for its continued growth. There must be effective prebiotics provided to allow that probiotic to continue to colonize. Because quite often a probiotic is considered an invader, it also must overcome some immune function, which may want to stabilize our bacteria and avoid this new bacteria being present. Ideally, we want to figure out exactly which prebiotic-probiotic compositions are most beneficial for human health. This involves two steps. One step is identifying which bacteria species we want to promote, and then the second is finding ways to stably colonize our gut such that that bacteria is present. This is an exciting area of precision nutrition because we don't quite know exactly which factors are true at an individual level that allow both A, colonization, and then B, beneficial health effects. In summary, there's a lot of interest and excitement in finding ways to modify our gut microbiome, especially by diet. This is projected to be an important way by which we can modify our gastrointestinal and broader health. Prebiotics are food sources for our bacteria, and probiotics, which are specific bacteria that are meant to colonize our gastrointestinal tract. The effectiveness of a prebiotic or probiotic depends on stable modulation of specific bacterial species. The studies on this currently are ongoing, And the effectiveness is mixed, likely because of differences in human microbiota and individual differences in both the likelihood for colonization and the likelihood of a beneficial biological effect. Many studies are ongoing to try to understand whether prebiotics and probiotics can be used effectively. And this is an exciting area for precision nutrition, where we want to understand for an individual person which pre and probiotics might be most beneficial for their gut microbiome.